She lived in a small, crumbling apartment in a neighborhood where hope often felt far away. Every day was a struggle to survive. She woke before sunrise, making sure her mother took her medicine and that her younger brother had something to eat before school. Their apartment was barely enough for the three of them, but it was all they had. The walls were cracked, the roof leaked when it rained, and sometimes the water ran out for hours. Still, she never complained. She had learned long ago that life did not wait for anyone. The woman worked as a maid in different households, often taking long hours for little pay. She remembered the mornings when she went without breakfast, just to make sure her brother had something in his stomach. There were nights she went to sleep hungry, but she kept telling herself that it would all be worth it if her family could eat and survive. Her strength did not come from wealth or luck, but from her determination to protect and care for the people she loved. One morning, she received a call from a wealthy family living on the outskirts of the city. They wanted a maid to work in their large house, and she knew this could be her chance to earn enough to finally help her mother's health improve. She packed her few belongings, kissed her mother and brother, and left, feeling both nervous and hopeful. She had never been in a house like theirs before. It was enormous, with marble floors, high ceilings, and walls decorated with expensive paintings. Everything gleamed, and the air smelled of flowers and perfumes. For a moment, she felt out of place, but she reminded herself why she was there. The family was polite but distant. They did not have time to ask about her life or her struggles. Their focus was on their son, a young boy who barely spoke and spent most of his time alone. He would sit by himself, staring at toys without playing. And sometimes he would watch the house from the large windows, as if looking for something he could not name. The woman noticed him on her first day. Something about his quiet, lonely eyes struck her heart. She understood the feeling of being unseen. Even in a house full of people, she began her work quietly. Cleaning, cooking, and making sure the boy's day was as smooth as possible, she noticed the little things. How he flinched when someone raised their voice. How he would tilt his head when someone tried to talk to him, and how he rarely responded to anyone. She felt a deep compassion for him, even though he did not yet know how to trust anyone. She knew the parents were busy with work and social events, leaving the boy without guidance or attention. That was when she decided, quietly, that she would try to help him. Days passed. She slowly learned the boy's routine. She would prepare his meals, clean his room, and sometimes sit beside him while he played silently. One day, while offering him a slice of bread, she softly asked him to say the word bread. He looked at her, blinking, unsure of what she meant. She smiled gently and repeated the word, showing him how to move his lips. After a few moments, he managed to say it in a small, uncertain voice. Her heart lifted. She did not scold or push. She only encouraged him. It was a small victory, but in her eyes, it was enormous. Over the next few weeks, she began a careful, quiet routine. She would use leftover food to encourage him to say simple words. She taught him colors, numbers, and common objects. He was a fast learner, but he still struggled to express himself fully. She learned to be patient, never forcing him, always letting him move at his own pace. They developed a secret bond, one that no one else in the house knew about. The boy began to look forward to these moments, even if he did not yet have the words to explain why at night. When the house was quiet and the family asleep, she would sit on the edge of his bed and review the day with him. They did not speak much. Sometimes it was enough to just be present together. She would hum soft songs, tell simple stories, and encourage him to repeat words. The boy's eyes would light up when he got a word right, and she would clap quietly, making sure not to disturb the parents. She felt a sense of purpose she had never felt before. It was not about the money or the job. It was about making a difference, even in small, quiet ways. The woman's life was still hard. She worked long hours, often skipping meals, and carried the weight of her family's struggles in her heart. But these moments with the boy gave her a secret joy. It reminded her that her work mattered. She was capable of bringing light into someone's life, even when her own world was gray. She often thought about how different her life could have been if someone had given her this kind of care when she was a child. She wanted to be that person for him. One afternoon, as the boy repeated a new sentence she had taught him, his father walked by and noticed the change. The boy was smiling, speaking clearly, and even laughed at a joke the maid had made. The father paused, curious, and watched from a distance. The woman continued her work, unaware that she was being observed. She felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. She had not sought recognition. She had only wanted to help. That evening, the woman sat in the small maid's quarters, exhausted but satisfied. She thought about her mother and brother, about the meals she had managed to provide that day, and about the boy who was slowly learning to speak. She whispered to herself that even small acts of kindness and patience could create ripples of change. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, that the boy's parents might one day notice and question her methods. But for now, she focused on the bond she had built. She felt a quiet hope for the future, a hope that perhaps her sacrifices were not in vain. As she prepared for bed, she looked out of the window at the city lights, thinking about the world outside and the life she was trying to build for her family. She smiled softly, feeling a sense of purpose that had been missing for so long. Tomorrow would be another long day, another day of work and teaching, but she was ready. She had found something worth fighting for, something that went beyond hunger, poverty, and exhaustion. She had found a way to make a difference. And that thought carried her gently into sleep. Days passed, and the bond between the maid and the boy grew stronger. Each morning, she would prepare his breakfast and quietly encourage him to say new words. He had learned simple phrases now and would sometimes attempt to tell her small stories about the toys he played with or the colors he liked. She would listen patiently, smiling and nodding, and offer a small treat when he tried hard. Sometimes it was a piece of bread, other times a slice of fruit, whatever she could spare. She found joy in his little successes, and he began to trust her more and more. She discovered that teaching him was not just about words. It was about building confidence. If he was frustrated, she would kneel beside him and patiently guide his hands, his mouth, and his expressions. She never scolded him, even when he failed to pronounce a word correctly. She understood that the boy needed encouragement more than criticism. Slowly, she could see the spark of curiosity and joy returning to his eyes, something that had been missing since he was very young. Her work was not easy. The house was large and demanding, with many tasks that left her tired and sore. She often went to bed late, finishing cleaning and organizing while thinking of how to make the boys' lessons more enjoyable. She made little flashcards from scraps of cardboard, drew simple pictures with crayons, and created small games to teach him letters and numbers. It amazed her how clever he was, and it made her feel proud to see him improve. Even though she was exhausted, the moments with him made her heart feel light, as if she was doing something truly meaningful in a world that often felt harsh and unfair. One rainy afternoon, the boy seemed upset and refused to speak. He sat in his room, hugging his knees, staring at the floor. She knelt beside him and asked softly if he wanted to talk. He shook his head. She didn't force him. Instead, she handed him a small slice of bread and whispered, "Whenever you are ready, I will listen." He looked at her, eyes wide and vulnerable. Slowly, he whispered a single word. She smiled warmly and encouraged him, showing him that mistakes were okay and that he could try again. By the end of the day, he had repeated a few words and even formed a small sentence, his face brightening with pride. It was moments like these that strengthened their quiet, unspoken trust. While she focused on teaching, she also kept careful watch over his health and comfort. She noticed small signs that the boy was sometimes neglected, a cold left unchecked, a scraped knee that no one cleaned, or a lunch forgotten in the rush of the parents' busy schedule. She quietly took care of these small problems, making sure he felt safe and cared for. It was not part of her job description, but she could not ignore the needs of a child who had no one else to watch over him. Her methods were simple but effective. She spoke slowly, using gestures, repeated words many times, and praised every attempt. She used games, songs, and stories to make learning fun. The boy responded eagerly, especially when she turned lessons into little challenges he could win. Sometimes he would laugh at his own mistakes, and she would laugh with him, making the lessons light and enjoyable. This connection grew deeper as they shared these quiet, joyful moments together, far away from the attention of the busy household. Despite the joy she felt in helping him, she remained careful. She knew the parents might not approve if they discovered how much she was doing. Some of the staff had whispered that she was taking too much time with the boy or spoiling him. She ignored them. Her priority was the child's growth, not the gossip. Each day, she balanced her responsibilities with her secret lessons, often going hungry herself so he could have little treats to encourage him. Her heart was full of love and hope, even though her own stomach ached. One afternoon, the boy's father returned home early and noticed the boy speaking words he had never heard before. He paused in the hallway, watching quietly. The boy's progress was remarkable. It was clear that someone had been spending time teaching him with dedication and patience. The father's expression was one of surprise and curiosity. The woman continued her work, pretending not to notice him. She focused on the boy, encouraging him, guiding his small hands as he formed words and gestures. It was a delicate balance between showing care and staying unnoticed. But she managed it with quiet skill. The boy had grown more confident. He would now approach her, sometimes asking questions in his small, uncertain voice. She would answer gently, guiding him patiently. She began teaching him small sentences, helping him form ideas and express feelings. She noticed how his laughter became more frequent, how his eyes sparkled with excitement when he learned something new. These little victories made her feel that she was making a real difference, that her sacrifices mattered beyond the walls of her own struggles. In the evenings, she often stayed late, preparing small lessons for the next day, making flashcards, and planning little games to teach him words and numbers. She imagined how he would grow, how he would one day speak confidently and understand the world around him. Her dreams were filled not with riches or luxury, but with hope for the boy, for his happiness, and for the knowledge that she had helped shape his early years. Even in exhaustion, she felt alive and purposeful. Her care for the boy was not limited to teaching. She watched his moods, noticed when he felt lonely or anxious, and found small ways to comfort him. She would hum soft songs while cleaning his room or read him short, simple stories before bed. He began to anticipate these moments, looking forward to her presence and the gentle encouragement she offered. Their bond became a quiet sanctuary in a house that otherwise moved too fast for attention and warmth. One day, the boy surprised her by forming a full sentence on his own. Recalling something they had discussed the day before, she felt a rush of pride and amazement. It was not just a word or a phrase. It was understanding, expression, and confidence all in one. She clapped quietly, careful not to disturb the parents, and praised him for his efforts. His face lit up with joy, and she knew that her patience and care were paying off. It was a secret victory, shared only between the two of them. But it filled her heart with more happiness than she had known in years. Life remained difficult outside the boy's room. She worried about her mother's health and her brother's schooling, often sending home a portion of her wages for medicines and meals. Yet the time she spent teaching the boy reminded her why she continued to endure long hours, hunger, and exhaustion. It was not simply a job. It was a purpose, a reason to believe that care, patience, and love could create real change. Sometimes she thought about what the boy's life would have been without her. He might have remained silent, lonely, and disconnected. She realized that her small acts of teaching, encouragement, and attention were helping him build a foundation for his future. This thought made every tired muscle, every skipped meal, and every sleepless night feel meaningful. She had become more than a maid. She was a guide, a teacher, and a friend. The father's occasional observation made her nervous, but she did not waver. She continued her lessons quietly, carefully, and thoughtfully. She knew that recognition was not her goal. Her aim was the boy's growth and happiness. In her heart, she felt that even the smallest improvement in his confidence and speech was worth every sacrifice she had made. And slowly, quietly, the boy's world began to change. Filled with laughter, curiosity, and the warmth of a bond that went beyond words. As the days rolled into weeks, the boy's progress became more visible to anyone who took the time to notice. He laughed more freely, spoke with greater confidence, and began showing curiosity about things around him. The woman continued to be his steady guide, always patient, always encouraging. never demanding, always believing in his potential. Their secret bond grew stronger, and with it, quiet hope blossomed in her heart that perhaps her life and his was changing for the better. The boy's father began noticing the changes more clearly. The small, quiet boy who once barely spoke now laughed and answered questions, forming simple sentences with increasing confidence. The father watched from a distance one morning, intrigued and slightly surprised by the progress. He did not know who was behind this transformation, and curiosity gnawed at him. He was a busy man, always moving from meetings to events, but this small, unexpected change captured his attention. Meanwhile, the maid continued her careful routine. She remained patient, nurturing the boy's confidence while balancing the demands of a large house. She knew she had to stay discreet. Some staff members were already murmuring about how she spent extra time with the boy. They suggested she was going beyond her role, and some even hinted that she might get into trouble. She ignored them. Her focus was on the child's well-being. Every smile, every word he learned, felt like a victory worth more than any wage. One afternoon, the boy struggled with a sentence she was teaching him. His frustration was clear, and his small hands trembled. She knelt beside him, her voice soft and encouraging. She reminded him that mistakes were part of learning, and that she believed in him. Slowly, he repeated the sentence, this time with more confidence. She clapped quietly, smiling warmly. The boy beamed, and the moment filled the quiet room with joy. This was her reward, the reason she endured long hours and fatigue. However, tension was slowly building. The father had begun asking questions about the boy's progress. He wondered why his son had improved so quickly, and who had been spending extra time teaching him. The staff sensed the father's curiosity and began whispering about the maid's involvement. She knew that if the father confronted her, she might be dismissed or worse. The thought made her uneasy, but she reminded herself that she was doing what was right for the boy, and she would not let fear stop her. One evening, after the house had quieted down, the boy hugged her tightly, thanking her in his small, sweet voice. She held him close, feeling a mixture of pride and love. She whispered that learning was a journey and that he was doing wonderfully. She often reflected on how teaching him had changed her own life. She felt a sense of purpose she had never experienced before, a reason to keep going despite her own hardships. These moments reminded her why she endured hunger, exhaustion, and the constant pressure of work. The father's curiosity finally led him to watch the maid more closely. He observed the small interactions, how she encouraged the boy, how she patiently guided his hands and mouth, and how the boy responded with excitement and trust. He realized that she was the reason for the boy's progress. He was surprised, but also impressed. He had expected a formal tutor or a professional to be responsible. Yet here was a young woman living in the house as a maid, dedicating herself quietly and selflessly to his son's growth. Despite her growing confidence in her teaching, the maid remained humble and cautious. She continued her routine, mindful of the father's watchful eyes. She did not boast or seek recognition. Every small achievement of the boy was enough for her. She felt a deep connection with him, a bond built on patience, trust, and shared effort. She knew that her role in his development was significant, yet she approached it with quiet care. Understanding that her influence needed to remain gentle and encouraging, the boy began to share small stories about his day, describing his toys, the colors he liked, and the little adventures he imagined. She listened carefully, praising his efforts and gently correcting his speech. These moments became a daily ritual, a time of joy for both of them. She noticed that he was laughing more, his face brightening with each word he mastered. The progress was slow but steady, and it filled her with hope and determination. One afternoon, the boy's father finally approached her directly, curious about the progress he had been observing. The maid felt a wave of nervousness. She wondered if he would be angry, whether she had overstepped her role. She prepared herself for a confrontation, unsure of what to expect. But when he spoke, his tone was calm and measured. He asked how she had managed to help his son so much. He did not accuse or scold. He merely sought to understand. The maid explained her simple methods, her patience, and her dedication. She spoke about using small treats, repetition, and encouragement, emphasizing that her aim was the boy's growth and happiness. The father listened quietly, absorbing every word. He began to see her not just as a maid, but as someone who genuinely cared for his son. Her actions had made a difference, and he could not ignore the dedication and selflessness she had shown. He realized that her influence had gone far beyond what he or anyone else in the household had expected. This recognition did not change her approach, but it planted a seed of respect and admiration in his heart. The boy continued to flourish under her guidance. He now spoke in longer sentences, expressed his thoughts, and even asked questions about the world around him. The maid felt immense pride in his progress. She reflected on the journey, from the first hesitant words to the confident sentences he now spoke. Every step had been built on patience, encouragement, and care. She understood that her influence would last far beyond these early years, shaping his understanding of communication and trust. Despite the growing attention from the father, she remained committed to her work. She continued to balance the house chores, her own personal struggles, and the boy's lessons. She often stayed up late preparing for the next day, making small learning aids and planning ways to make lessons more engaging. Her dedication was tireless, and her love for the boy's progress kept her going. Every smile, every word spoken correctly, reinforced the belief that her efforts were worthwhile. One evening, as the rain fell softly outside, the boy approached her with a small drawing he had made. It depicted the two of them together, teaching and learning. She smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. It was a simple act, but it symbolized the trust and bond they had built. She hugged him, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. These small, quiet moments were the essence of her work, the reason she endured hardships, and the source of hope in her life. The father's continued observation added a layer of tension, but also acknowledgement. He began to appreciate the depth of her influence and the patience she displayed daily. He understood that her care had provided his son with not just language skills, but confidence, curiosity, and emotional security. This realization brought a quiet respect for her dedication and selflessness. She had managed to make a significant difference in his son's life without seeking recognition or reward. Life in the house continued with the same rhythm, but the undercurrent of understanding between the maid and the father began to grow. He would occasionally watch her quietly, noticing the thoughtfulness in her actions and the patience in her teaching. He began to trust her more, slowly letting her guide his son's learning without interference. Her role in the household shifted subtly, from a simple maid to a quiet guardian and mentor. The boy thrived, learning not just words, but confidence and joy. The maid's dedication, patience, and love had created a sanctuary of learning and warmth in a world that often seemed too busy to notice. The woman continued her secret teaching, knowing that the boy's growth was a treasure she could never take lightly. Each day brought new challenges, new words to teach, and new moments of connection. Her life remained difficult, filled with long hours and personal sacrifice. But the joy she witnessed in the boy's progress gave her strength. She understood that what she was doing mattered, and that small acts of care could transform lives in ways that wealth and status could not. As the weeks turned into months, the boy's speech became clearer, his confidence stronger, and his curiosity more evident. The maid remained by his side, guiding him with gentle encouragement and unwavering patience. The father's appreciation grew quietly, a recognition that she was not only teaching words but building the foundation of his son's personality and confidence. The household had begun to feel different, not because of wealth or possessions, but because of the care, attention, and love that she brought into the boy's life. And in this quiet, patient, and consistent way, the woman continued her mission, shaping a young life while quietly changing her own. One evening, the father finally decided to speak directly to the maid. He had been observing the boy's progress and was curious about the efforts behind it. The maid was nervous, unsure of how he would react. She prepared herself for a reprimand, fearing she might lose her job or be scolded for going beyond her duties. She stood quietly as he entered the room where she had been helping the boy with his lessons. The boy watched them, sensing the tension but unaware of the meaning. The father's voice was calm. He asked her to explain how the boy had learned to speak so quickly and confidently. She took a deep breath and told him the truth. She spoke about her simple methods, using patience, small treats, repetition, and encouragement. She explained that she had spent time each day helping him because she cared about his growth and happiness. She did not exaggerate or try to impress him. She spoke honestly and humbly. The father listened silently, taking in every word. He was surprised and impressed. He had expected a professional tutor or specialist to have worked with his son, but here was a young woman, living in the house as a maid, dedicating herself selflessly to his child's development. Her actions had made a significant difference, and he began to see her in a new light. He realized that her patience, dedication, and love had gone beyond what he could have imagined. It was clear that she had changed his son's life in ways he himself had not managed to achieve. The maid continued, speaking about the challenges she faced. She shared how she often skipped meals to save treats for the boy, how she stayed up late preparing lessons, and how she balanced her own life and family struggles while caring for him. She spoke quietly but with sincerity, and the father could see the truth in her eyes. He realized that her dedication was not about money or recognition. It was about genuine care and the desire to make a difference. The boy's father began asking questions about her methods. She explained how she used simple games, songs, and stories to teach him words, how she encouraged him to express himself, and how she patiently guided him through mistakes. She emphasized the importance of building confidence and trust. The father nodded, slowly understanding that her work was not just about teaching words. It was about shaping his son's personality, emotional intelligence, and curiosity. The maid also spoke about the small routines she had created, the way she observed the boy's moods, and the little steps she took to make learning fun. She told him about the times she had helped him when he was frustrated, lonely, or unsure of himself. Every word she spoke showed her commitment and the depth of her care. The father felt a growing respect for her, realizing that she had given his son something far more valuable than lessons. She had given him attention, understanding, and the confidence to speak. As she spoke, the boy watched her with admiration. He could sense that she had been working hard for him, even when he did not understand everything. He felt grateful, though he could not fully express it yet. The father noticed the bond between them, a connection built on trust, patience, and shared effort. He realized that this bond had been instrumental in the boy's progress. His curiosity and surprise turned into admiration and quiet respect. The maid's humility and honesty impressed the father further. She did not seek praise or reward. She only wanted to help the boy. Her selflessness was clear in her actions and words. He began to see her not just as a maid, but as a remarkable person whose character and dedication were rare. Her work had not only improved his son's speech, but it also brought joy, confidence, and curiosity into his life. The father felt a mix of gratitude and admiration. He asked her if she had any needs or difficulties, and she hesitated at first, not wanting to appear demanding. Then she spoke about her family, about her mother's health, and her younger brother's schooling. She shared the struggles she faced outside the house, explaining that she had been working tirelessly to support them. The father listened carefully, realizing that her efforts extended far beyond the household. He understood the weight she carried and the sacrifices she had made, and he felt a deep respect for her resilience and courage. After listening, he made a quiet decision. He would not scold her, nor would he let her efforts go unrecognized. Instead, he began to find ways to support her. He started by acknowledging her work, asking her about her methods, and showing interest in her approach. This acknowledgement was simple but meaningful. It made her feel seen, respected, and valued. For someone who had worked in silence and often in invisibility, this recognition was a profound moment. The boy's father also began to observe her interactions with the child more closely, noticing the patience, gentleness, and care in every action. He saw how she celebrated small victories, how she encouraged effort over perfection, and how she created a safe and supportive environment. He understood that her influence extended far beyond the words she taught. She was building confidence, resilience, and joy. This realization deepened his respect and changed the way he viewed her role in the household. The maid continued her teaching now with a quiet sense of relief and validation. She felt that her work was appreciated, even if silently, and this gave her renewed energy. She continued to use her simple methods, patient guidance, and small treats to encourage the boy. He responded with enthusiasm, learning faster and gaining confidence. Their bond grew stronger, built on trust, care, and shared progress. She felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing that she was making a real difference in his life. Life in the household began to shift subtly. The father's respect for her grew, and he began to allow her more freedom to guide the boy's learning. The boy thrived under her care, becoming more expressive, curious, and confident. The maid's dedication had not only improved his skills, but it also created a nurturing environment where he felt safe and encouraged. This change was quiet but profound, affecting the atmosphere of the household in ways that were noticeable to everyone who paid attention. The maid continued to balance her work, family responsibilities, and the boy's lessons. She remained humble, patient, and dedicated, never seeking reward or recognition. Her focus was always on the boy's growth and well-being. She found joy in small moments, a correctly spoken word, a smile, or a new question from the boy. These moments reminded her why she endured hardships, and they gave her a quiet strength that carried her through long days and sleepless nights. The father's surprise and admiration grew as he watched the positive changes in his son. He began to trust the maid completely, understanding that her influence was invaluable. He realized that her dedication, patience, and love had created a foundation for his son's future. The household had quietly transformed, not through wealth or authority, but through care, attention, and the guidance of a remarkable woman who had devoted herself selflessly to a child's growth. The maid's life was still challenging. She worried about her family, worked long hours, and often went without food to support the boy's learning. But the sense of purpose and the quiet acknowledgement from the father made her efforts feel worthwhile. She had become more than a maid. She was a teacher, mentor, and guardian. Her influence had reached beyond her immediate tasks, shaping a young life and earning the respect of those who had once overlooked her. As the days passed, the boy's confidence continued to grow. He spoke more clearly, expressed his thoughts, and began to explore his surroundings with curiosity. The maid guided him patiently, celebrating every small achievement and gently correcting mistakes. Her care, dedication, and patience created a safe and encouraging environment where he could flourish. The father's respect and admiration remained, quietly acknowledging the extraordinary impact she had made. Through her selflessness and perseverance, the maid had transformed not only the boy's life, but also the dynamic of the household, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who witnessed her quiet dedication. Boy had grown more confident than ever. He spoke in sentences, asked questions, and laughed freely. His world had expanded, and he felt safe exploring it with the maid by his side. She continued to guide him gently, teaching not only words, but also the joy of learning, the patience to try again, and the courage to express himself. Every small achievement filled her with pride. She saw the boy's happiness as a reward for all her sacrifices. One afternoon, the father called her into his study. She felt nervous, wondering if she had done something wrong. The boy watched quietly from a distance, curious but calm. When she entered, the father's expression was serious, yet kind. He thanked her for the dedication and care she had shown to his son. He spoke about the remarkable progress the boy had made, and how much it had changed their lives. She listened quietly, a mixture of relief and pride washing over her. She had never expected recognition. But hearing these words from the father made her heart swell. The father then asked about her family, showing concern for her struggles and the hardships she faced. She explained quietly about her mother's illness and her younger brother's schooling. She spoke honestly without asking for help, but sharing the reality of her life. The father's expression softened as he listened. He realized that her dedication extended far beyond her role in the household. She had not only been teaching his son, but she had been quietly carrying the weight of her own family's survival, all while giving her best to the boy. Her selflessness left a deep impression on him. He offered her a chance she had never imagined. He promised to provide financial support for her mother's treatment and her brother's education. He also offered a permanent position in the household with better pay, ensuring she would not have to worry about daily survival. The maid was overwhelmed. She had worked tirelessly for others without expecting anything in return. And now, she was being acknowledged in a way that would change her family's life forever. She accepted with gratitude and humility, feeling a mix of relief, joy, and pride. The boy ran to her, his small arms wrapping around her in a tight hug. She held him close, feeling the connection they had built over months of patience, teaching, and care. He whispered words she had helped him learn, words of thanks and affection. The father watched quietly, a small smile on his face, witnessing the bond that had formed between them. It was clear that this relationship was more than teacher and student. It was built on trust, love, and mutual respect. Life began to change for the maid and her family. Her mother received proper treatment and started to regain her health. Her brother could attend school regularly, no longer burdened by their previous financial struggles. The maid continued her work in the household, but now with peace of mind, knowing that her family's needs were met. She no longer had to go hungry or worry about small necessities. Her life had transformed, not through luck alone, but through her dedication, perseverance, and selfless care. The boy continued to thrive under her guidance. He explored his world with curiosity, spoke confidently, and developed a love for learning. The maid's patient teaching had given him not only the ability to communicate, but also the confidence to face challenges and the courage to express his thoughts. Their bond remained strong, and the boy's happiness reflected the impact she had on his early years. She saw in him a reflection of hope and potential. Knowing that her efforts had helped shape a young life in a meaningful way, the father's admiration for her grew over time. He often observed the small interactions, the encouragement, and the gentle guidance she provided. He realized that her role had become essential, not just for the boy's education, but for his emotional and personal growth. Her patience, humility, and dedication had transformed the household in subtle but profound ways. The atmosphere became warmer, calmer, and more nurturing because of her presence. The father respected her not just as an employee, but as a person of integrity and care. The maid herself continued to approach her work with the same dedication and humility. She never let recognition or reward change her methods. Her focus remained on the boy's development and happiness. She created small lessons, games, and activities to keep learning fun. She encouraged curiosity and creativity, teaching the boy to ask questions and think for himself. Each day brought new challenges, but also new moments of joy, laughter, and growth. She found fulfillment not in wealth or praise, but in the small victories and smiles that reflected her impact. Her life outside the household also improved. With her mother receiving treatment and her brother attending school, she felt a sense of relief and stability. She could now focus on her work without the constant worry of her family's survival. This newfound security allowed her to invest even more in her teaching and the boy's growth. She felt a deep sense of purpose. Knowing that her actions had created lasting change, both for the boy and for her own family, the boy's progress continued to amaze the father. He spoke clearly, expressed ideas, and approached challenges with curiosity and confidence. The maid's patient guidance had nurtured not only his language skills but also his character. He became more empathetic, thoughtful, and confident, reflecting the influence of her care and teaching. The father observed these changes with pride and gratitude. Recognizing that her dedication had played a pivotal role in shaping his son's future, the household atmosphere remained warm and supportive. The maid's presence brought stability, care, and patience. Her influence extended beyond teaching words. She had created an environment where the boy could thrive emotionally, socially, and intellectually. The father's respect for her grew, and he began to trust her guidance completely, allowing her the space to teach and nurture without interference. The household had transformed from a place of distance and routine into a nurturing environment where growth and learning were encouraged. As time passed, the maid continued to teach, care for, and support the boy. She celebrated each new word, each sentence and each small achievement with quiet pride. The boy's confidence and curiosity grew, and he developed a love for learning that would stay with him for life. The father watched silently, appreciating the impact of her dedication, patience, and love. He realized that her influence was not just immediate but would shape the boy's character and future in profound ways.